to Noob-Splaining. My name is Wolf. If this is your first time here, this is where I explain the gloriously over-the-top world of Warhammer 40,000 that nerds like me love so much. So hit that subscribe button, grab a drink, settle in, and prepare for a Noob-Splaining session. So this week we're going to take a look into the subtle and sometimes not so subtle differences between the major Space Marine Loyalist chapters. Although each chapter can in theory conduct warfare in any style that is needed, certain chapters excel in one kind of warfare over another. So let's have a look at each of these chapters and let's see if I can describe them in a handful of sentences covering their personality, preferred fighting styles and what they like to do in their spare time. Ultramarines. The poster boys of 40k. Because as Space Marines go, they're not as psychotic as the rest of them, and don't have any skeletons in the closet, that we know of. They follow the Codex Astartes to the letter, the Codex Astartes being the book that is basically known as How to Space Marine for Dummies, and are famed for the fact they have a plan for everything alongside their legendary logistical skills. Based upon the Roman legions of old, I've often joked that in their spare time they have the galaxy's largest model railway set so they can practice micromanaging the shit out of timetables. If you do end up going to war alongside them, you will never have to worry about ammunition, fuel, food or water, but they might just bore you to death. Dark Angels. The First Legion and also a very proud legion, alongside being very secretive, due to their fallen comrades that they are somewhat embarrassed about. An extremely powerful chapter, with vaults upon vaults of weapons, armour and tanks. They had a habit of abandoning a fight halfway through if they got the slightest whiff of a fallen was nearby, but with the line coming back that all might change. Based upon the medieval knights of old, most likely spend their spare time polishing their armour and looking proud, except the Deathwing, who probably spend all their time looking for the fallen still. The Blood Angels. The Blood Angels have two problems. Well, they have many problems, but they have two problems with their gene seed. The first is the red thirst. So although they have no nutritional need to drink blood, if they don't, they start to age and weaken both mentally and physically. That's because they are literal space vampires. The other flaw is the Black Rage, where they go absolutely batshit crazy and think they are their Primarch Sanguinius in the final fight with the enemy of Horus, and go into a full berserker retard mode that they never get out of, with a couple of exceptions. Even without the Black Rage, they are a very brutal and vicious chapter, preferring to be up close and personal with a chainsword. Despite this, in their spare time, they love to create art in the forms of music, paintings, pottery and sculptures, but will frankly turn to any of the arts. I can just imagine some of the Blood Angels reenacting the Horus Heresy using interpretive dance for the rest of the chapter. Space Wolves. Now everybody thinks they are just brutal, vicious savages with very little culture and are also somewhat dumb. But quite frankly, the Space Wolves don't give a fuck what you think about them. In reality, they are very intelligent warriors and specialise in shock attacks designed to sow fear and contempt amongst the enemy. Based upon the Vikings of old, they spend their time hunting beasts and having feasts. They've also managed to create the only type of beer that gets a Space Marine actually drunk, to the point they will pass out even with their super immune system. It's not so much a beer, it's more of a poison. If a human tried it, they would die instantly. I think it's called Foster's. The Imperial Fists. Now if your name happens to be Chapter Master Valorak, the Imperial Fists are the best chapter ever and you can move on to the next section. If that's not your name, they are one of the most honoured chapters due to them being in charge of defence of the Emperor's Palace during the Horus Heresy, and they did a fantastic job. That's what they do, specialise in siege warfare, primarily defence. It is said the only way you get into anywhere the Fists hold is if they want you to get in, so they can ambush you. It's also said if they build a sandcastle, the tide can't wash it away. They're also fucking boring to the point they make accountants seem like the life and soul of the party. The Salamanders. An interesting chapter. On one side, they care massively for humanity, and anywhere they are stationed they will spend time among the human population, joining them for meals, helping them with construction projects, or even working in the fields with them, and they will even be known to train the local guardsmen, which is akin to Special Forces training the Boy Scouts. On the other hand, when it comes to warfare, they found the list of weapons banned by the Geneva Convention and went, yep, that's perfect for us. They love using flamers, melter weapons, and when it comes to the enemy of mankind, to them there is no such thing as a war crime. Raven Guard. Originally depicted as the sneaky ones of the Loyalists, this has now evolved into them being specialists in hit and run attacks. They also took on the mantle of being loosely based on Native Americans after that was dropped from the Dark Angels when they were retconned into medieval knights. They spend all their spare time practicing turning invisible, probably along with doing some card tricks as well. One of the only 2 chapters that can move silently in full power armour, the other being the Space Wolves. The White Scars. Based upon the Mongol army of Genghis Khan, they were initially the Space Marine Legion's scouts, so operated very independently. When they were formed into a legion and then down again into a chapter, they kept the idea of being a fast-moving scout force, but instead transformed into a fast-moving strike force. As a result, they won't get into any vehicle unless it will do at least 100 miles an hour and 0 to 60 in less than 4 seconds. Spend their spare time drag racing and also hunting with birds of prey that are probably equipped with jet boosters. Iron Hands. A chapter known for being tough and resolute. They just get shit done and move on. They also believe the flesh is weak, so whereas other chapters will use bionic limbs only in the case of severe injuries, to the Iron Hands it is a rite of passage. They spend all their time planning which bit of their body they will replace next, and the ultimate goal is to become Robocop in power armour. Death Watch. A sort of special forces of all the chapters that specialise in killing Xenos. They are made up of volunteers from other chapters, and not all of those volunteers were totally voluntary depending on the chapter they came from. They specialise in assaults on Xeno command units of particularly powerful invading forces, which results in them most likely getting munched on by Tyranids. What they do in their spare time depends on which chapter they came from, but they all love some Space Wolf beer while sharing stories by the campfire. Grey Knights, a specialist chapter made of Emperor Chris's own DNA and not from one of the Primarchs. They train and are equipped to only fight demons, or they were. These days they will fight anything, taking away a lot of their mystery. Not one Grey Knight has ever fallen to chaos. They do spend all their time, however, praying to Emperor Chris. Black Templars. An Imperial Fist successor chapter, and proof that the apple does sometimes fall far from the tree. In this case, it also rolled down the hill and hitchhiked into another town. The Black Templars are religious, zealous, psychotic nutjobs, taking advantage of a rule in the Codex Astartes to ensure they are always on several crusades at any one time. This means they can push their chapter numbers well above the normal 1000, and they regularly have 13 to 1400 marines at any one time. Spend all of their spare time praying to Emperor Chris just like the Grey Knights, and based upon the Crusaders of old, complete with the Maltese Cross. Car Charodons. They are the Space Sharks, based on Great Whites. The older they get, the bigger they get, alongside their skin turning grey and their eyes pure black. This shows the most in their chapter master, Tybros the Red Wake, who, to put it bluntly, is just fucking massive, and his Terminator plate is fitted out with Dreadnought plate so he can wear it. They often lurk around the edges of deep space, striking at the enemies of mankind, and in times of great need will just show up, violently murder the fuck out of all the bad guys, and disappear back into the darkness just like a Great White. They don't have any spare time, as they are constantly hunting the enemies of mankind in the darkest regions of space. Minotaurs. A very unique chapter in the fact that they are very, very good at killing other Space Marines. As a result, they are kept on a kind of retainer by the Inquisition, and sent to put down chapters that show signs of heresy. Hyper-violent and brutal, and based on the Spartans. The Greek ones from 300, not the Halo ones. Their chapter master, Asterion Moloch, has some weird thing going on that makes it look like every time he dies, someone else just takes his place and name. They spend all their spare time inviting servitors to visit their fortress monastery called Daedalus Crater. Then when they arrive, they kick the servitor down a well while yelling, "This is Crater!" Lamenters. One of the luckiest, yet also unluckiest chapters ever. Apart from their luck, they are pretty much run of the mill, but thanks to their luck, they are constantly brought to the brink of destruction through sheer bad luck, manage to survive through sheer good luck, rebuild their chapter, then rinse and repeat. Spend all their time just trying to survive. Their bad luck started during the Badab War, when they accidentally picked the wrong side, and the Minotaurs turned up and nearly murdered them all. Been in the destruction restoration cycle ever since. Blood Ravens are a standard run-of-the-mill chapter at first glance, but being the main protagonists of the Dawn of War series of games and its many expansions, they have survived being wiped out more often than the Lamenters. Seem to have an unlimited supply of Space Marines. Well, when I play Dawn of War anyway. I can easily get 300 Terminators killed and still lose a mission on easy mode. They appear to be made of traitor gene seed, specifically that of the Thousand Suns, as they have an unusually high number of psychers, and share some of the same phrases, like "knowledge is power, guard it well." If this is true, it means Call has been experimenting with Traitor Gene Seed for years. They spend all their time nicking relic weapons and armour from other chapters. Really, they should be renamed the Bloody Thieving Magpies. The Firehawks / Legion of the Damned. The Firehawks were a Space Marine chapter that disappeared in the warp. Shortly after, ghostly wraith-like Space Marines would materialise in real space where the Imperium needed them the most. They would kick ass, then just disappear again. It is believed Emperor Chris saved them from destruction in the warp and made them into a ghost army, appearing where needed the most. Spend all their free time trying to break the curse of the Black Pearl. I mean Legion of the Damned. And finally, your own custom chapter. And this is where you can go overboard or be as plain as you want. This is one of the beautiful things about 40k. You don't have to follow one of the chapters that are already out there, especially with how clear the new rules are in 10th edition. You could create your own chapter and play them as Ultramarines. Next week you could play them as Dark Angels. Next week you could play them as Space Wolves. It doesn't matter. So, if none of those other chapters I mentioned take your fancy, create your own. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. And there we have it. That brings us to the end of this video. If you laughed or learnt anything, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And if you are already subscribed, then don't forget to share this video with somebody who could do with some noob-splaining in their life. Also, leave a comment on your favourite part. I do try and interact with every comment. But if you made it this far, thank you, and I'll see you next time.